If I hadn't tried my key that afternoon, I would have believed my son owned my house. I know how that sounds. A mother, locked out by her own child. It sounds like something that happens to other people. The kind of story you hear, and quietly think, that would never be me. But I used to think that too. Until the moment I stood in front of my own front door, and realized something was very, very wrong. It was a normal day. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that warned me. The sky was clear. The street was quiet. The same neighbor's car was parked across the road. I had just come back from the grocery store. Milk, bread, apples. The same things I always bought. I remember thinking about dinner. About whether David liked the soup I made the night before. That's what was in my head. Not fear. Not suspicion. Just ordinary thoughts. That's why what happened next felt so unreal. I walked up the steps, shifted the bags in my hands, and reached for my keys. The metal felt cold, like it always did. Familiar. Safe. I didn't hesitate. I slid the key into the lock, turned it, and nothing. At first, I didn't react. I thought maybe I hadn't pushed it in properly. So I pulled it out, looked at it. Same key, same worn edges, same tiny scratch near the top that John used to joke about. This key has more history than we do, he once said. I smiled at the memory, then tried again, slower this time. Careful, turning it just enough, listening for that small, familiar click. But it never came. The lock didn't move. Not even a little. That's when I felt it. Not panic. Not yet. Something quieter. Something colder. Confusion. The kind that doesn't make sense right away. The kind that makes you question something simple. Like a door. Or a key. Or reality. I stepped back. Looked at the house. Really looked at it. Same door. Same paint. Same small crack near the bottom that David promised to fix 2 years ago. This was my house. I knew every detail. Every sound. Every corner. So why did it suddenly feel like I was standing in front of someone else's life? I tried the key again. Harder this time. As if force might fix whatever was wrong. It didn't. The key stopped halfway. Blocked. Like it didn't belong there anymore. That's when I heard it. Laughter. Soft at first. Muffled through the door. Then clearer. Closer. Familiar. Too familiar. I froze. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. Because I knew those voices. David. And Emily. Inside. In my house. Laughing. Like nothing had changed. Like nothing was wrong. Like I wasn't standing outside. Locked out. For a moment, I thought, maybe they changed the lock. But that didn't make sense. Why would they do that? Why wouldn't they tell me? Why would I need permission to enter my own home? My grip tightened around the grocery bags. The plastic dug into my fingers. But I didn't feel the pain. All I felt was something building inside my chest. Something I couldn't name yet. I stepped closer, raised my hand, and knocked. Once. No answer. I waited. Listened. The laughter stopped. Completely. Like someone had pressed pause on a moment I wasn't supposed to hear. I knocked again. Harder this time. A pause. Then footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming closer to the door. My heart started beating faster. Not from fear. From something else. Something heavier. Something that felt like it had been building long before this moment. The handle moved slightly. Then stopped. Like whoever was inside. Was thinking. Deciding. And suddenly, I had a feeling I couldn't ignore anymore. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't a broken lock. Something had changed. And whatever it wasn't in my favor. The door opened. Just a few inches. Not wide. Not welcoming. Just enough to see. Emily stood there. Her face calm. Too calm. Not surprised. Not confused. Not concerned. She looked at me like she had been expecting me. Like she had been waiting for this exact moment. For me. Standing outside. With my groceries. With my questions. With my key that no longer worked. I tried to speak. But nothing came out. Because in that second, I realized something I had never considered before. I wasn't trying to get into my house anymore. I was waiting. To be allowed in. And that's when everything inside me shifted. Not just confusion. Not just doubt. Something deeper. Something that felt like the ground beneath my life had quietly moved. While I wasn't looking. And I was only just starting to notice. I didn't move. Not right away. I stood there, still holding the grocery bags, still trying to understand what I was looking at. Emily didn't open the door any wider. She just stood there, blocking the entrance, like that small gap between us was all I was allowed. "Hi, Linda," she said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Like this was normal. Like I was the one who didn't understand something simple. I tried to speak. "Emily, the lock. But my voice felt unfamiliar. Thin. Uncertain. She didn't answer my question. Instead, she looked past me for a second, then back at my face. You shouldn't be here right now, she said. There was no hesitation. No apology. Just a statement. Simple. Clean. Final. I blinked. Why wouldn't I be here? I asked. Because I needed to hear her say it. Needed to understand what she thought this moment was. Her hand stayed on the door. Firm. Not aggressive. But not letting go either. David's inside, she said. I know, I replied quickly. I heard him. For a second, something shifted in her expression. Not guilt. Not fear. Just calculation. Like she was choosing her next words carefully. Then she opened the door just a little more. Not enough to invite me in. Just enough for me to see him. David. Standing a few steps behind her. Not moving. Not smiling. Not coming closer. Just standing there. Watching. I felt something tighten in my chest. David, I said. His name came out softer than I expected. He didn't answer. Didn't step forward. Didn't even look directly at me. His eyes moved, just slightly, toward Emily. Like he was waiting. For her. To continue. That's when the silence started to feel heavier. Not empty. Controlled. Like a conversation I wasn't part of anymore. I shifted my weight. The grocery bags pulled at my hands again. I suddenly became aware of how long I had been standing there. Outside. Like a stranger. Can you open the door? I asked. Simple question. Something that shouldn't have needed explanation. Emily didn't move. Instead, she tilted her head slightly. Almost like she was surprised I hadn't understood yet. Linda, you really shouldn't be here, she repeated. Same tone. Same calm voice. But this time, it landed differently. Because it didn't sound like a suggestion anymore. It sounded like a boundary. And I wasn't on the right side of it. My fingers tightened around the plastic bags. You keep saying that, I said. But this is my house. The words felt strange as soon as I said them. Not because they weren't true, but because of how easily they were about to be challenged. Emily didn't argue. Didn't raise her voice. She just looked at me, steady, unshaken. Linda, she said quietly, you signed the papers. The world didn't stop. There was no dramatic moment. No sound. No shift in the air. Just those 5 words. You signed the papers. I frowned. What papers? I asked it slowly. Carefully. Because I needed to hear her explain it. Needed there to be some kind of misunderstanding. Emily's expression didn't change. Not even slightly. The transfer, she said. The house. My chest tightened. No, I said immediately. That's not possible. I shook my head. More to myself than to her. I never signed anything like that. There was a pause. Not long. Just enough for something unspoken to pass between her and David. Then she looked back at me. And smiled. Not kindly. Not warmly. Just confidently. You did, she said. You just didn't understand it. That sentence hit harder than anything else. Not because of what it meant, but because of how easily she said it. Like it was already done. Already decided. Already real. I turned my head toward David. Because this couldn't be real without him. David, I said again. This time, my voice was different. Stronger. Less uncertain. Tell her. I waited. 1 second. 2. 3. He didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't correct her. Didn't defend me. He just stood there. Looking somewhere between the floor and the door. Like if he didn't fully meet my eyes. He wouldn't have to answer. That silence was louder than anything Emily had said. I felt something shift inside me. Not confusion anymore. Not doubt. Something clearer. Something sharper. Because for the first time since I walked up those steps, I stopped trying to understand what was happening and started realizing something else. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't miscommunication. This wasn't something we were going to talk through over dinner. This had already happened. Before I even reached the door. Before I even tried my key. Whatever they had done. Whatever they believed. It was already in place. And I was the only one who hadn't been told. I took a slow breath. Adjusted my grip on the grocery bags. And stepped back. Not far. Just enough to create space. Because suddenly, standing there and asking questions didn't feel right anymore. Not when the answers were already decided without me. Emily noticed. I could see it in the way her eyes followed that small movement. Careful. Alert. Like she was watching for something. But I didn't say anything else. Not yet. Because something in the back of my mind, something quiet, was starting to connect pieces I hadn't fully seen before. The missing documents. The comments. The phone call I overheard. She doesn't know yet. I looked at the door one more time. At the space where I used to walk in without thinking. At the line I was now standing outside of. And for the first time, I realized something that changed everything. They weren't trying to push me out. They already believed. I was gone. I didn't argue. That was the first thing that surprised them. I could see it. Not in anything they said, but in what they didn't. Emily's grip on the door tightened for a second. David finally looked up. Just briefly. Like he expected something louder. A reaction. A scene. But I didn't give them that. Because something had already changed in me. Standing there, outside my own door. Listening to words that didn't make sense. I realized arguing wouldn't fix anything. Not if the decision had already been made without me. So I nodded. Once. Small. Controlled. Okay, I said. My voice sounded steady. Stronger than I felt. I'll come back later. Emily didn't answer. She just watched me. Careful. Measured. Like she was trying to figure out if I really meant it. I turned. Walked down the steps. Each step slower than the last. Not because I was weak, but because I was thinking. Really thinking. For the first time since this started. The grocery bags felt heavier now. Not because of what was inside them, but because of what I was carrying in my head. I reached the sidewalk. Kept walking. Didn't look back. Because I already knew what I would see. The door closing. Quietly. Like I had never been there. I didn't go far. Just to the end of the street. There's a small bench there. Near the mailbox. I sat down. Placed the bags beside me. And finally, let myself breathe. Not panic. Not cry. Just breathe. Because if I let myself react too fast, I knew I would miss something important. And something about this didn't feel random. It felt prepared. Planned. Like pieces had been moving for a while. And I was only just seeing the picture. I closed my eyes. And started going back. Not to today. Not to the door. Further. To the small things. The things I ignored. Because they didn't seem important at the time. Emily reorganizing the drawers. At first, it felt helpful. Neat. Efficient. But now, I remembered something else. The way she didn't ask. The way she decided. The way things disappeared after. My blue folder. The one with insurance papers. Gone. My old bank statements. Missing. The envelope John told me never to lose. The one he handed me the night he came back from meeting the lawyer. I hadn't seen it in weeks. At the time, I told myself I misplaced it. Now, that didn't feel true anymore. I opened my eyes. Looked at my hands. Still holding the same keys. Keys that no longer worked. That's when another memory surfaced. Clearer this time. Stronger. The kitchen. Late at night. The light over the sink still on. Emily's voice. Soft. Careful. She doesn't know yet. I sat up straighter. My heartbeat changed. Not faster. Sharper. Because now that sentence didn't feel distant. It felt connected. Direct. Like it belonged exactly here. With everything else. She doesn't know yet. Didn't know what? I asked myself that question before. But I never stayed with it long enough to answer. Now I had to. Because whatever they believed I didn't know was already affecting me. Already locking me out. I leaned forward. Rested my elbows on my knees. And forced myself to think clearly. Step by step. What would make them so confident? So calm. So certain. That they could stand in my doorway. And tell me I didn't belong there? It wasn't just attitude. It wasn't just disrespect. It was something stronger. Something they believed was real. Something legal. That word came to me slowly. But once it didn't leave. Legal. Because Emily didn't argue with me. She didn't try to convince me emotionally. She didn't say things like, you don't need this house. Or, we're doing this for you. No. She said something else. You signed the papers. Not, we decided. Not, we agreed. She said you signed. Which meant, they believed it was already done. Already official. Already theirs. I sat there for a long time. Not moving. Not reacting. Just putting pieces together. Because for the first time, this wasn't about feelings. This was about proof. About documents. About something written down somewhere. That they thought gave them control. And that's when something else clicked. Not just what they believed, but what they didn't understand. Because if there were papers, if there was something signed, then there had to be a process. A record. A way to trace it. And if there was a mistake, even a small one, then everything they were standing on could fall apart. I reached into my bag. Took out my phone. My hands were steady now. Not shaking. Not unsure. Because I wasn't trying to get back inside anymore. Not yet. First, I needed to understand exactly what they thought they had done. And more importantly, what they had missed. I opened my contacts. Scrolled down slowly. until I found the name I hadn't called in a long time. Mr. Harris, my husband's lawyer, the man John trusted. With everything. My thumb hovered over the screen for a second. Just one. Because I knew, once I made this call, whatever this situation was, it would stop being quiet and start becoming something else. Something clearer. Something harder. Something they wouldn't be able to control anymore. I pressed the call button and held the phone to my ear, listening, waiting, because for the first time since I stood at that door, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was preparing. The phone rang. Twice. Then a click. Mr. Harris. His voice was exactly the same. Calm. Direct. Familiar. For a second, I didn't speak. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I was choosing how to say it. Mr. Harris, it's Linda. A pause. Then his tone softened, just slightly. Linda, it's been a while. Yes. Another pause. Not uncomfortable. Just careful. I need to see you, I said. No explanation. No details. Just the request. He didn't ask questions right away. That's something I always respected about him. When he asked. Today. Silence on the line. Not hesitation. Assessment. Then, come in at 3. I glanced at the time on my phone. 1:18 p.m. Okay, I said. I'll be there. The call ended. And just like that, everything felt different. Not fixed. Not resolved. But clearer. Because now I had a direction. A next step that didn't involve standing outside a locked door, asking for permission. I didn't go back to the house. Not even to check. Not even to see if they were still watching from the window. Because whatever answers were inside that house, they weren't going to give them to me. Not honestly. Not completely. So I walked. Slow at first. Then steadier. Carrying the grocery bags like they still mattered. Like I still had a routine. Because part of me needed that. Needed something normal to hold on to. By the time I reached my car, the street looked the same. Nothing had changed. Which felt strange. Because everything had changed. I placed the bags in the back seat. Sat down behind the wheel. And just sat there. Hands resting lightly on the steering wheel. Eyes on the windshield. Not seeing the road. Seeing something else. The past. Moments I hadn't questioned before. Now coming back, sharper. More detailed. Emily asking about my schedule. Do you usually go out in the afternoon? David mentioning paperwork. Mom, we should organize your documents. Just in case. At the time, it sounded like concern. Like planning. Like family. Now it felt different. Now it felt like timing. Like they were mapping something out. Quietly. Without me. I exhaled slowly. Because anger wasn't useful yet. Not without facts. And that's what I needed. Facts. Proof. Something that turned this from a feeling into something real. Something I could act on. The drive to Mr. Harris's office took 20 minutes. I didn't turn on the radio. Didn't check my phone. Didn't think about what I would say in detail. Because I knew one thing. I wouldn't understand this until I saw it. Until someone showed me exactly what they believed I had signed. Exactly what they thought gave them control. When I walked into the office building, everything felt familiar. Too familiar. The same marble floor. The same quiet reception desk. The same faint smell of paper and polished wood. I had been here before. Many times. With John. He used to handle everything. The documents. The meetings. The decisions. I trusted him with that. Never felt the need to ask too many questions. Because he always said the same thing. If anything ever happens, Harris will know what to do. At the time, I thought he meant small things. Details. Technicalities. I didn't think he meant this. Linda, the receptionist, looked up. Recognized me immediately. He's expecting you. I nodded. Walked past the desk. Down the same hallway. Past the same doors. Each step steady. Measured. Because now, this wasn't confusion anymore. This was something I needed to understand completely. When I entered his office, Mr. Harris was already standing. He didn't smile. Didn't try to soften the moment. He just gestured toward the chair across from his desk. Sit. I did. Placed my bag beside me. Kept my hands in my lap. Because I didn't want to rush this. Didn't want to miss anything. He sat down slowly. Folded his hands. And looked at me. Not briefly. Not casually. Directly. Carefully. Like he was already trying to read what I hadn't said yet. What happened? He asked. Simple question. No assumptions. No conclusions. Just space for the truth. I took a breath. Not to calm down. To be precise. They changed the locks, I said. He didn't react. Didn't interrupt. So I continued. They said I signed papers. A slight shift in his posture. Small. But noticeable. What papers? He asked. I don't know, I said. Because I didn't sign anything like that. Another pause. This one longer. Not. Silence. Processing. Then he leaned forward slightly. Do you have any documents with you? He asked. I nodded, reached into my bag, and pulled out what I still had left. Not everything, but enough. Old copies. Statements. Fragments of what used to be organized. I placed them on the desk. He didn't touch them immediately. Just looked at them. Then at me. Is this all? He asked. Yes. That word felt heavier than it should have. Because it meant something else too. It meant things were missing. Important things. He reached forward, picked up the first document, and began reading. Slow. Careful. Page by page. I watched his face. Not his hands. Not the papers. His face. Because I knew. Whatever this was, the answer wasn't in what I said. It was in what he saw. And I needed to know. Exactly when he found it. He didn't rush. That was the first thing I noticed. No quick scan. No flipping through pages. Mr. Harris read each document like it mattered. Like one line, one detail, could change everything. The room was quiet. Not tense. Just focused. The kind of silence that forces you to hear your own thoughts. I kept my hands still in my lap. Because I didn't want to interrupt the process. Didn't want to break whatever he was seeing, forming, connecting. He finished the first document. Placed it to the side. Picked up the next. His expression didn't change much. But small things did. A slight pause on certain lines. A longer look at specific sections. Once he adjusted his glasses. Not out of habit. Out of attention. That told me something. He wasn't confused. He was noticing something. I leaned forward slightly. Not enough to be obvious. Just enough to stay connected. How bad is it? I asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. Kept reading. Finished the page. Then finally looked up. Linda, I need to ask you something first. His voice was steady. Controlled. Not alarmed. But not casual either. Did you sign anything recently? He asked. Anything at all? Even something you didn't fully read? I shook my head. No, the answer came fast. Certain. Because I had already asked myself that question. Over and over. No contracts. No transfers. Nothing about the house. He held my gaze for a second, like he was testing the certainty of that answer. Then he nodded slightly. All right. He looked back down at the papers. Picked up another one. This is a standard property summary, he said. His finger traced a line. Nothing unusual here. He flipped to the next page. And this is an older bank statement. Another pause. Then he set both aside. I don't see any signed transfer documents in what you brought. My chest loosened slightly. Just a little. Because that confirmed something important. What they claimed wasn't in front of me. At least not here. Then how are they saying I signed something? I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he leaned back in his chair. Eyes narrowing slightly. Thinking. Not reacting. Processing. That depends, he said slowly. On what they believe they have. I frowned. What does that mean? It means, he continued, either there's a document we haven't seen, he paused, or they're relying on something else. The words settled into the room. Heavy. Unfinished. Something else. I repeated. He nodded. Power of attorney. Consent forms. Partial transfers. There are different ways people try to claim control. The way he said it, try to claim control, stood out. Not legally transfer. Not properly process. But try. That mattered. I leaned forward more now. Not hiding it. Are you saying they might not actually own anything? I asked. He didn't answer directly. Instead, he reached for another document. This one older. Edges slightly worn. He opened it carefully. Read a section. Then another. And that's when I saw it. The first real change in his expression. Not shock. Not alarm. Recognition. Something clicked for him. Subtle. But clear. His eyes stopped moving for a moment. Focused on one line. Then he exhaled. Not loudly. Just enough for me to hear it. Linda, my heart tightened. Because the way he said my name was different. Slower. More deliberate. Yes. I asked. He didn't look up immediately. He read the line again. Then turned the page. Checked something else. Cross-referenced it. Only then did he lift his head. And when he did, his expression wasn't confused anymore. It was certain. Do you remember the trust your husband set up? He asked. The question landed quietly. But it changed everything. Yes, I said. Of course. John had insisted on it. Years ago. I didn't fully understand it at the time. Just that it was for protection. For later, he said. Mr. Harris nodded slowly. Good, he said. Because that trust is the reason this situation isn't what they think it is. I blinked. What do you mean? He leaned forward again. This time, there was no hesitation, no uncertainty, just clarity. The house, he said, is not something that can be transferred the way they're claiming. My pulse quickened, not from fear, from something else, something sharper, hope. But they said, I started. I know what they said, he interrupted calmly. And I'm telling you, based on what I'm seeing here, he tapped the document lightly. They don't have what they think they have. Silence. For a second, I didn't speak. Because I needed that sentence to settle. Needed to understand what it meant. Not emotionally. Logically. If they didn't have control, then why were they so confident? Why did they act like everything was already theirs? There had to be a reason. A piece I was still missing. I looked at him. Focused. What did they do? I asked. Because now, this wasn't about what I lost. It was about what they thought they had taken. And more importantly, how they believed they had done it. Mr. Harris held my gaze, then said quietly, that's exactly what we're going to find out. He didn't waste time. Once he said it, that's exactly what we're going to find out. The pace changed. Not rushed, but intentional. Mr. Harris turned back to the documents. Not the ones I brought. A different stack. From his side of the desk. Files I hadn't seen before. He pulled one folder closer. Opened it. Flipped past the first few pages quickly. Then slowed down. All right, he said quietly. Let's do this step by step. I leaned forward. Not because he asked me to. Because I needed to see this with him. Not after. Not explained. In the moment. Your husband set up a living trust, he said. You're listed as the primary trustee. I nodded. That part one remembered. Barely. But enough. And David? I asked. He glanced at another page. Secondary beneficiary. Not trustee. The distinction landed immediately. I didn't need legal training to understand it. Beneficiary meant later. Trustee meant control. Now, I felt something settle inside me. Not relief. Structure. Because for the first time, this wasn't just emotion. This was position. Which means, I started. Which means, he continued. He doesn't have authority to transfer or alter the property. Clear. Direct. No room for interpretation. Then how are they acting like they do? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled another document. Thinner. Recent. Different paper quality. That stood out. Because everything else felt older. Established. This one felt new. Added. Because of this, he said. He turned the document toward me. I looked down. Read the title. Authorization of access. My eyes moved across the page. The language was formal. Neutral. But something about it felt off. Do you recognize this? He asked. I scanned the bottom. Signature line. My name. Written. But not the way I write it. Not exactly. Close enough to pass. Not close enough to be right. I never signed this, I said. My voice was calm. Not defensive. Certain. He nodded once. I didn't think so. He tapped a section in the middle. This document doesn't transfer ownership. I looked back at it. Then at him. Then what does it do? It gives them access, he said. Temporary. Limited. But enough to create the appearance of control. That word again. Appearance. Everything they were doing was built on that. Looking real. Feeling official. But not actually holding. I sat back slightly. Let that sink in. They used this to get into accounts? I asked. Possibly, he said. Or at least to present themselves as authorized to manage certain aspects of the property. And the lock? I asked. His expression didn't change. That part doesn't require legal authority, he said. It just requires confidence. The simplicity of that answer hit harder than anything else. Because he was right. They didn't need permission to change a lock. They just needed to believe I wouldn't stop them. Or wouldn't know how. I looked back at the document. At my name. At the version of it they thought would be enough. They thought this covered everything. I said. Yes, he replied. And in many cases, people don't question it. A quiet pause. Then he added, especially if they trust the people presenting it. That landed. Deep. Because trust wasn't just part of this. It was the foundation of it. Everything they did. Only worked because I never expected it. I folded my hands. Steady. Focused. So what does this actually give them? I asked. Access to certain records. Possibly the ability to speak on your behalf in limited situations. He paused. But not ownership. Not control. Not authority. The difference was everything. I exhaled slowly. Because now, the picture was clearer. They didn't take the house. They created a version of reality where it looked like they had. And they acted fast, confident. Before I could question it, before I could stop it, I looked up. What about the papers they said I signed? I asked. He leaned back slightly. That's the part that concerns me more, he said. Because if they're claiming a full transfer, he didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. I understood. That meant something else existed. Something bigger. Something we hadn't seen yet. Something they believed would hold up. I felt that sharp focus return. Stronger now. Because this wasn't confusion anymore. This was strategy. They're counting on me not checking, I said. Yes. They're counting on me believing it's already done. Yes. And walking away. He held my gaze. For most people, he said quietly, that's exactly what happens. The room went still for a second. Not empty. Decisive. Because now I knew two things. What they had. And what they didn't. And more importantly, what they thought I would do. I reached for my phone. Not to call. Just to hold it. Because I was already moving to the next step. What do we do now? I asked. He didn't hesitate this time. We verify everything, he said. Then we correct it. Simple. But precise. I nodded once. Because for the first time since I stood outside that door, I wasn't reacting to what they had done. I was preparing to undo it. We didn't wait. That was the difference now. No more sitting. No more guessing. Mr. Harris turned his monitor toward him. Opened a secure portal. Typed slowly. Deliberately. Each keystroke felt like it mattered. This is the county registry, he said. Every official property transfer has to be recorded here. I watched the screen. Not the details. The process. Because this was where their story would either hold or break. He entered my name first. Results appeared. Clean. Organized. Expected. Your property is still listed under the trust, he said. Same calm tone. But I heard the meaning behind it. Nothing had changed. At least not officially. Now we check if anything was filed recently, he added. He adjusted the filter. Dates. Recent entries. The screen refreshed. A new list appeared. Short. Only a few items. He scanned it once. Then again. Slower. More focused. I leaned in slightly. Not asking. Just watching. Because this part mattered. This was where their confidence came from. There. His cursor stopped. Not moving. Not clicking yet. Just resting. What is it? I asked. He didn't answer immediately. He clicked. Opened the file. A document appeared. Structured. Formal. Stamped. Different from the one he showed me earlier. This one felt heavier. More official. My eyes moved quickly. Title. Names. Dates. And then, my name. Again. Signed. My chest tightened. That's not my signature, I said immediately. Before he even asked. Before he said anything. Because I knew. Not just instinct. Recognition. The shape was wrong. The spacing. The way the letters connected. It looked like me. But it wasn't me. He nodded once. I agree. No hesitation. No doubt. He zoomed in slightly. Compared it to another document from the file. A real one. Something I had signed years ago. The difference was subtle. But clear. This is a transfer request, he said. Attempting to move authority over the property. Attempting. I repeated. Yes, he said. Because it hasn't been approved. That word hit. Approved. Meaning, it wasn't complete. It wasn't final. It wasn't real. Not yet. They filed it, I said slowly. But it didn't go through. Correct. Relief didn't come. Not fully. Because something else replaced it. Understanding. They weren't guessing. They weren't hoping. They had taken action. Filed something. Signed something. Presented something. And then, acted like it was already done. I leaned back slightly. Processing. They thought this would be enough, I said. He didn't respond right away. Instead, he scrolled further down. Checked the status line. Then pointed. Pending review, he said. And flagged. I focused on that word. Flagged. Yes. For irregularities. A quiet pause. Then he added, most likely the signature. That made sense. It wasn't perfect. Close. But not perfect. And in something like this, close isn't enough. I exhaled slowly. Because now the picture was clearer. They had tried to take control. Legally. But failed. At least partially. And instead of waiting. Instead of fixing it. They moved forward anyway. Changed the locks. Spoke with certainty. Created pressure. Because if I believed it, if I accepted it, then it wouldn't matter whether the document was valid. It would become real through action. Through silence. Through my absence. I looked at the screen again. At my name. Written by someone else. Used for something I never agreed to. Who filed this? I asked. Mr. Harris checked the metadata. Scrolled to the bottom. There's a submitting party listed, he said. He read the name. A law office. Not his. Not one I recognized. Do you know them? He asked. I shook my head. No, which meant one thing. They didn't just try this on their own. They involved someone. Someone willing to process it. Or at least submit it. That's important, he said. Because it gives us a trail. A way to trace it. A way to challenge it. A way to stop it. I nodded slowly. Because now, this wasn't just about what happened at the door. This was about intent. Planning. Execution. They didn't just react. They prepared. They built something. Even if it wasn't complete. Even if it wasn't valid. They believed it would hold long enough. Long enough for me to step back. To give up. To accept it. I looked at Mr. Harris. Focused. Clear. What happens if I don't? I asked. He met my eyes. And for the first time since I walked into that office, there was something different in his expression. Not concern. Not caution. Confidence. Then we stop it, he said. Simple. Direct. Final. I nodded once. Because that was all I needed. Not reassurance. Not comfort. A plan. Something real. Something grounded. Because now I understood something they didn't. This wasn't over. Not even close. In fact, it had just reached the point where they could actually lose everything. We didn't leave it there. Not after seeing that document. Not after knowing exactly what they had tried to do. Mr. Harris closed the file on the screen. Turned back to me. Now we move quickly, he said. No hesitation. No delay. Because timing mattered. More than anything else. If that transfer gets approved, even by mistake, it complicates things, he added. Not impossible. But harder. Slower. Messier. I nodded. I understand. And I did. Because this wasn't just about proving they were wrong. It was about stopping something before it became real. He reached for a legal pad. Started writing. Short notes. Clear steps. We're going to file an objection immediately, he said. That puts a hold on the review. My eyes stayed on the paper, watching the process. Because every step now was undoing something they thought was already done. We'll also request a signature verification, he continued. That forces a formal check. And if it fails? I asked. It gets rejected. Simple. Clean. Final. I felt that word again. Final. But this time, it was on my side. He finished writing. Tore the page. Set it in front of me. These are the steps, he said. We start now. I didn't read it right away. Instead, I looked at him. After that, I asked. Because stopping the document was only part of it. The rest was still waiting at that door. He leaned back slightly, considering. After that, he said, we address possession. That word stood out. Possession, not ownership. Because ownership hadn't changed. But possession, who was inside? Who controlled access? That was the problem. They changed the locks, I said. Yes. And they think they have the right. Yes. Another pause. Then he added, we'll show them they don't. I held his gaze. Because that was the moment everything shifted again. From understanding to action. Can we do that today? I asked. His answer came immediately. Yes. We moved fast after that. Documents printed. Forms signed. Not rushed, but efficient. Because every minute mattered. Every delay gave them time to settle into the story they were building. The one where I was already gone. By the time we finished the filings, it was already late afternoon. The light outside had changed. Softer. Lower. But inside me, everything felt sharper. Clearer. Focused. Because now I wasn't guessing anymore. I knew what they had. I knew what they didn't. And I knew what we were about to do. We walked out of the office together. Not side by side, but aligned. Purpose clear. No extra words. No unnecessary conversation. Because this wasn't emotional anymore. It was precise. As we reached the parking lot, he stopped. Turned slightly toward me. I'll come with you, he said. Not a question. A decision. I nodded. Because I understood why. This wasn't just about showing up. It was about presence. Authority. Clarity. Something they wouldn't be able to dismiss. The drive back felt different. Same road. Same turns. But I wasn't thinking about what might happen. I was thinking about what I would do. What I would say. What I wouldn't say. Because that mattered too. No arguments. No explanations. Just facts. Just reality. Just the truth they tried to avoid. I kept my hands steady on the wheel. Eyes forward. Breathing even. Because whatever waited at that house, it wasn't going to surprise me anymore. When we turned onto my street, I slowed down. Not out of fear. Out of awareness. Because I could see the house from a distance. Lights on inside. Curtains slightly open. Movement. They were there. Living in it. Like it was already theirs. Like I was already gone. I parked across the street. Not directly in front. Not yet. Mr. Harris didn't say anything. He just looked at the house. Then back at me. Ready? He asked. Simple. Direct. I didn't answer immediately. Because I wanted to feel it. Not force it. Not pretend. Real readiness. The kind that doesn't come from anger. Or emotion. But from certainty. I looked at the door. The same one that didn't open earlier. The same one I stood in front of. Waiting. Questioning. Unsure. And I realized something. That version of me wasn't here anymore. I reached for the door handle. Opened it. Stepped out of the car. Yes, I said. Quiet. But clear. We walked toward the house together. Step by step. Not fast. Not slow. Measured. Because this moment wasn't about getting back inside. It was about showing them something they didn't expect. Not emotion. Not reaction. Control. We reached the front steps. I stopped. Just for a second. Looked at the door. The lock. The place where my key used to work. Then I raised my hand. And knocked. Once. Firm. Clear. Not asking. Not waiting. Announcing. Because this time, I wasn't here to understand what they had done. I was here to end it. The knock echoed through the door. Solid. Unmistakable. Not the kind you ignore. For a second, nothing. No movement. No voices. Just silence. Then footsteps. Quick this time. Closer. Less controlled than before. The handle moved. The door opened wider than it had earlier. Emily stood there again. But this time, something was different. Not her posture. Not her expression at first. But her eyes. They moved past me immediately. Noticing him. Mr. Harris. Standing just behind my shoulder. Calm. Still. Present. That was the first shift. Small. But real. What is this? She asked. Her voice was still controlled. But tighter now. Less certain. I didn't answer her question. Instead, I stepped forward. Not pushing past her. Not forcing entry. Just closing the distance. Enough to change the dynamic. This is my lawyer, I said. Simple. Clear. No explanation beyond that. Her gaze flicked back to me. Then to him. Then behind her. David moved into view. Faster this time. Like he realized something had changed. Mom, he started. But the word didn't land the same. Not like before. Because now, he wasn't the one setting the tone. I looked at him. Not long. Just enough. Then back at Emily. We need to talk, I said. She hesitated. Just for a second. But it was there. The first visible break. In here, she asked. Not inviting. More like testing. Seeing how far she could still control the space. Mr. Harris stepped forward slightly. Not aggressive. Just enough to be heard clearly. This conversation will happen here, he said. Calm. Even. But firm. No room for interpretation. Emily didn't argue. Not directly. But I could see it in the way her hand tightened on the door. In the way her shoulders lifted just slightly. Because this wasn't how she expected it to go. Not this quickly. Not this clearly. She stepped back. Just enough. We walked in. The house felt the same. That was the strange part. Same furniture. Same smell. Same light. But the feeling was different. Because now I wasn't a guest. And I wasn't outside anymore. I was standing exactly where I had always belonged. And they knew it. Even if they hadn't accepted it yet. David closed the door behind us. Slowly. Carefully. Like he wasn't sure what came next. We stood in the living room. The same room I heard them laughing in. Now quiet. Still. Emily crossed her arms. A defensive shift. Subtle. But visible. What is this about? She asked. Still holding on to control. Still trying to define the situation. Mr. Harris didn't rush. He took a step forward. Positioned himself slightly to the side. Not blocking me. Not leading. Just present. Then he spoke. Earlier today, he said, a claim was made regarding the ownership and control of this property. His voice didn't rise. Didn't push. But every word landed. Specifically, he continued, that Mrs. Linda transferred authority through signed documents. Emily's expression held. For a second. Then shifted. Not fear. Not yet. But something closer to uncertainty. That's correct, she said. Quick. Too quick. Like she needed to say it before anything else could challenge it. David looked at her. Then at me. Then back at the floor. Still not speaking. Still not choosing. Mr. Harris nodded slightly. As part of our review, he said, We accessed the county registry. That got her attention. A small change. Eyes narrowing. Focus tightening. Any formal transfer must be recorded, he continued. And we located a submission. Silence. Not empty. Tense. Because now, this wasn't about what they said. It was about what existed. And Emily asked. The word came out sharper. Less controlled. He didn't react. The document is currently pending, he said. Flagged for irregularities. That word again. Flagged. It landed differently here. Heavier. Because now they heard it too. Emily's arms uncrossed. Then crossed again. A small, unconscious movement. David finally looked up. Directly at Mr. Harris. What does that mean? He asked. His voice was quieter than before. Less certain. Mr. Harris met his gaze. It means, he said, the transfer has not been approved. A pause. Then, and based on what we've reviewed, it cannot be approved in its current form. The room shifted. Not physically, but something underneath it. Something they were standing on, started to crack. Emily shook her head slightly. That doesn't make sense, she said. It was filed. It was processed. It was submitted, Mr. Harris corrected. Not completed. Each word precise. Controlled. Clear. David's expression changed. Subtle, but real. Confusion. The kind that comes when something you believed starts to fall apart. But she signed it, Emily said. There was less confidence in it now. Less certainty. More insistence. Mr. Harris didn't argue. He simply reached into his folder, pulled out a copy, held it up. The signature has been flagged for verification, he said, which means its validity is in question. That was the moment. The real shift. Because now, it wasn't about interpretation. It wasn't about belief. It was about proof. And they didn't have it. Emily looked at the document, then at me, then back at the paper. Her mouth opened slightly, closed again. David didn't say anything, didn't move, didn't defend her. For the first time, they weren't in control of the conversation. And they knew it. I stepped forward. Just one step. Enough to be seen, to be heard, to be present in a way I hadn't been before. You said I signed everything, I said. My voice was calm, even, steady. So tell me. I paused. Just long enough. What exactly do you think I gave you? And this time, they didn't have an answer. No one answered. Not immediately. The question stayed in the room. Unclaimed. Unresolved. Emily looked at me. Then at the document in Mr. Harris's hand. Then back at David. Like she was searching for something. A correction. A confirmation. A way to pull control back. David didn't move. Didn't step in. Didn't say what she needed him to say. That silence again. But this time, it wasn't protecting her. It was exposing everything. Mr. Harris didn't fill it. He let it sit. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is let the truth arrive on its own. Emily exhaled. Sharp. Controlled. You're overcomplicating this, she said. The tone changed. Less calm. More defensive. We filed the transfer. It's being processed. That's how this works. Mr. Harris shook his head slightly. No, he said. That's not how this works. Simple. Direct. Unmovable. Emily's eyes narrowed. You're saying we did something wrong? She asked. He didn't hesitate. I'm saying, he replied, you don't have legal authority over this property. The words landed clean. No extra explanation. No padding. Just the fact. David looked up again. This time longer. Focused. Then why was it accepted? He asked. That question mattered. Because it showed something. He wasn't defending anymore. He was trying to understand. Mr. Harris turned slightly toward him. Submissions are received, he said. They're not validated instantly. A pause. Especially when signatures require verification. Emily shook her head again. Faster this time. No. That doesn't make sense, she said. We were told it was fine. I repeated quietly. She froze. Just for a second. But it was enough. Mr. Harris caught it too. Who advised you? He asked. His tone didn't change. But the direction did. Now the focus shifted. From the document. To the people behind it. Emily didn't answer. Not right away. Her eyes moved again. To David. Then away. Like she was deciding whether to say it. Or protect it. David spoke first. There was a lawyer, he said. The words came slower. Less certain. He said the process was straightforward. Mr. Harris nodded once. Name? He asked. David hesitated. Then gave it. The same one from the filing. The one I didn't recognize. Mr. Harris wrote it down. Calm. Methodical. Because. This wasn't surprising to him. Not entirely. This explains the submission, he said. But it doesn't change the outcome. Emily's voice rose slightly. So what are you saying? She asked. That this means nothing? Mr. Harris looked at her directly. It means, he said, you do not have ownership, control, or authority over this property. Each word placed carefully, like building something solid, unbreakable. And changing the locks, he continued, does not change that. Silence. Real silence this time. Not controlled. Not strategic. Empty. Because there was nothing left to say against it. I took another step forward. Not aggressively. Just enough to be fully present. This is my house, I said. No emotion. No anger. Just truth. And you lock me out of it. Emily didn't respond. Her posture shifted again. Arms uncrossing. Weight moving slightly back. The confidence that was there before wasn't gone. But it wasn't solid anymore. David looked at me. Really looked this time. Not avoiding. Not deflecting. Mom, he started again. But the word didn't carry weight anymore. Because now, it wasn't about what he called me. It was about what he had done. Mr. Harris stepped forward slightly. This situation needs to be corrected immediately, he said. Meaning what? Emily asked. Her voice quieter now. Less force. More uncertainty. Meaning, he replied. You no longer have the right to deny access. A pause. Then, and if that continues, we escalate. That word landed. Escalate. Because it meant something beyond this room. Something official. Something that wouldn't stay contained. David swallowed. Subtle, but visible. Emily looked at the door. Then back at me. Then at the lock. The same one that didn't open earlier. The same one that started all of this. You're saying we have to just let her in? She asked. Mr. Harris didn't blink. I'm saying, he replied, she never needed your permission. That was the moment. The real reversal. Because earlier, I stood outside that door. Waiting. Questioning. Uncertain. Now, they were the ones looking at it. Trying to figure out what they were allowed to do. I reached into my pocket. Took out my key. The same one that didn't work before. Held it in my hand. Felt the weight of it. The history of it. Then I looked at them. Both of them. Not angry. Not emotional. Just clear. Fix it, I said. 2 words. Nothing more. Because everything else had already been decided. And this time, they knew it. No one moved at first. The word hung there. Fix it. Simple. Direct. Unavoidable. Emily looked at the door. Then at David. Then back at me. Like she was calculating something. Not what to say, but what was still possible. David shifted his weight. Subtle. But enough. Because now, he wasn't standing behind her anymore. Not fully. Emily, he said. Low. Careful. That was new. Not confident. Not certain. Just unsure. She didn't answer him. Didn't even look at him. Her attention stayed on the lock. On the door. On the one thing that now represented everything they had done. We already changed it, she said finally. The tone was different. Not defensive. Not aggressive. Just flat. Like stating a fact. I didn't respond. Because I didn't need to. Mr. Harris stepped in. Then it will need to be changed back, he said. Clear. Practical. No emotion. Just correction. Emily exhaled slowly. Longer this time. Like she was trying to hold on to something that was slipping. It's not that simple, she said. Mr. Harris didn't argue. Actually, it is, he replied. Because your position here is not supported. Each word measured. Grounded. Impossible to push against. David ran a hand through his hair. Something he used to do when he was stressed. When he didn't know what to say. I noticed it immediately. Because I had seen it my entire life. That small detail, it brought something else into the room. Not sympathy. Not forgiveness. Just clarity. This wasn't just Emily. He was part of this. Fully. Whether he spoke or not. Mom, we thought, he started. I stopped him. Not loudly. Not sharply. Just enough. No, I said. And that was it. Because this wasn't about what they thought. It was about what they did. Silence again. But this time, it didn't feel heavy. It felt settled. Like everything that needed to be said already had been. Emily moved first. She walked toward the door. Slow. Deliberate. Not rushed. Because even now, she was trying to hold on to control. Even if it was just the appearance of it. She reached for her phone. Opened something. Probably a contact. Give me a minute, she said. Not asking. Not explaining. Just delaying. Mr. Harris nodded once. Of course, he said. But his tone made something clear. A minute. Was all it would be. No more. David stayed where he was. A few steps behind. Not following her. Not approaching me. just standing in the middle of the space, like he didn't know where he belonged anymore. I looked at him. Not long, but long enough, because now there was nothing between us except truth. You were going to let it happen, I said. Quiet. Even. He didn't deny it. Didn't argue. Didn't explain. His eyes dropped. And that was answer enough. I nodded once. Not in agreement. In acknowledgement. Because that was all there was left. Emily came back after a minute. Exactly. Not longer. Not shorter. They're sending someone, she said. Her voice controlled again. But thinner. Less certain. To change it back. Mr. Harris inclined his head slightly. That will be acceptable, he said. Acceptable. Not appreciated. Not resolved. Just acceptable. That distinction mattered. Emily stepped back. Further this time. Creating space. Not holding it. Releasing it. That was the second shift. The real one. Because earlier, every inch of this house felt guarded. Now there were gaps. Openings. Places where control used to be. And wasn't anymore. I walked toward the living room. Slowly. Not to reclaim it dramatically. Not to prove anything. Just to be there. In a place I had always been. The couch was the same. The table. The lamp. Everything untouched. But it felt different now. Because I could see it clearly. Without the illusion. Without the assumption. Without the idea that this space was shared equally. It wasn't. Not anymore. Time passed quietly after that. No conversation. No small talk. Just presence. Waiting. David moved to the side. Sat down. Then stood up again. Couldn't stay still. Emily stayed near the door. Watching. Not speaking. Mr. Harris remained where he was. Calm. Steady. Like nothing here surprised him. Because to him this was a situation. A process. Something to correct. To me, it was something else. Something that couldn't be undone as easily as a lock. When the knock came, it wasn't loud. Just practical. Expected. Emily opened the door. Spoke briefly. Let the locksmith in. No resistance. No argument. Because now, there was nothing left to defend. He went straight to the lock. Worked quickly. Efficiently. Tools. Clicks. Small mechanical sounds. And within minutes, it was done. He stepped back. Try it, he said. Simple. Neutral. I walked over. Reached into my pocket. Took out my key. The same one from earlier. The same one that didn't work. I held it for a second. Not because I doubted it, but because I understood what it meant now. Then I inserted it into the lock. Turned it. And this time, it moved. Clean. Smooth. Like it always had. The door opened. Without resistance. Without permission. Without question. I stepped back slightly. Looked at them. Both of them. And said nothing. Because I didn't need to. Everything had already changed. And this time, there was no way to pretend it hadn't. The door stayed open. For a second, no one moved. Not me. Not them. Because something had shifted in a way that didn't need words. The same door I stood in front of earlier that day. Holding groceries, waiting, questioning. Now stood open. Without resistance. Without permission. Without doubt. I stepped inside. Slowly. Not to make a point. Not to prove anything. Just to be where I had always been. The floor felt the same under my feet. The air felt the same. Even the light coming through the window hadn't changed. But I had. That was the difference. Because earlier, I walked up those steps thinking I belonged here. Without ever questioning it. Now, I walked in knowing exactly why I did. And exactly who didn't. I placed my bag on the table. The same place I had set things down for years. Routine. Familiar. Simple. And for a moment, I let that simplicity stay. Because everything else had been complicated enough. Behind me, I could feel them. Not physically close, but present. Uncertain. David shifted again. Like he wanted to say something. Emily didn't. She stayed near the door. Watching. Measuring. Trying to understand what came next. I turned around. Not slowly. Not dramatically. Just enough to face them. Because this part mattered. Not for them. For me. This doesn't continue, I said. My voice was calm. Even. No anger. No raised tone. Just a line. Clear. Final. David nodded slightly. Too quickly. Like he wanted to agree before the words fully landed. Yeah, of course, he said. But his voice didn't carry weight. Because agreement now didn't undo anything. Emily didn't nod. Didn't speak. She just held my gaze. Longer than before. Less confident. But not gone. Because control, even when it breaks, doesn't disappear immediately. It fades. And I could see that happening. Right there. In real time. I've already filed an objection, I continued. Everything that was submitted is under review. Mr. Harris didn't speak. He didn't need to. His presence said enough. And from this point forward, I said, nothing moves without me. Silence. Then David spoke again. Quieter this time. Mom, we didn't mean. I stopped him. The same way I did before. No, just that. Because intention didn't matter now. Only action. Only outcome. Only what had been done. He nodded again. Slower this time. Understanding it a little more. Or at least, accepting that he didn't get to explain it away. I walked past them. Toward the hallway. Not leaving. Just moving through the space. Because I needed to feel it. Each step. Each room. Each part of the house that had been turned into something else. Without my knowledge. Without my consent. I paused at the doorway to the bedroom. Looked inside. Nothing changed. But everything was different. Because now, I could see it clearly. This wasn't about space. Or walls. Or furniture. It was about trust. And how quietly it can be taken. When you assume it's still there. When I walked back into the living room. They hadn't moved much. Still waiting. Still unsure. I stopped near the door. Not blocking it. Not holding it. Just near it. Because that's where this started. At the threshold. At the point where something was taken. Without force. Without noise. Just certainty. The wrong kind. I looked at the lock. The new one. Now turned back into something familiar. Something that worked. Something that belonged. Then I looked at them. Both of them. And for the first time, I didn't feel confusion. Or doubt. Or even anger. Just clarity. You didn't take my house, I said. The words came easily. Because they were true. You showed me who shouldn't be in it. That landed. Heavier than anything before. Because it wasn't about winning. Or losing. It was about seeing something clearly. That I hadn't wanted to see before. David looked down. Emily didn't. But her posture shifted again. Less rigid. Less certain. Because now, there was nothing left to hold on to. Mr. Harris stepped toward the door. Quiet. Respectful. This will move forward legally, he said. Everything will be resolved. I nodded. Not because I needed reassurance. But because I understood. This part, the legal part, would finish what we started. But the rest was already done. I walked to the door. Closed it. Gently. Not out of anger. Not to shut them out dramatically. Just to end the moment. The same door. The same lock. The same place everything changed. But now, there was no question. No hesitation. No waiting. Just certainty. That night, I sat in the living room. Alone. The house was quiet again. Like it used to be. But it didn't feel empty. Not anymore. Because I understood something I hadn't before. Silence isn't always loneliness. Sometimes, it's clarity. I looked around. At everything that had stayed. At everything that had almost been taken. And I realized something simple. Something I should have known all along. Sometimes, you don't lose your home. When people walk out of it. Sometimes, you finally keep it. When you stop letting the wrong ones stay.